So I was scrolling through there the other day, looking at some of your previous shows, or maybe it was before my show started. And you had Dr. Bernie Siegel on there. Is that
I
right?
just wrote a book with Dr. Bernie Siegel. It comes out on October the 6th.
Seriously. So tell me.
Yeah.
So first of all, for those who don't know, who is Bernie Siegel?
Dude, he's a legend. So I didn't know. I honestly I had heard the name, but I didn't know. And and so Bernie, I was approached by somebody else to be a co-author in this book that Bernie's in, and he's written 19 books. He is a physician. He was a pediatric surgeon, and he got into more of the, hey, your mind can heal your body thing, and he's been called a quack by a lot of other doctors, unfortunately, but I think he's proven himself over the years. The guy he's a genius. He's just absolutely incredible.
So what's the book about, and how did and what did they want Ken to contribute to this book?
Well, it's called Crappy to Happy, and they wanted stories of falling on your face and getting back up and winning in spite of it, which is kind of the theme of my show. Break through walls, right? So I said, yeah, which time, which story do you want, man? There's a lot of them. And so I did a story talking about that. And, you know, I'm very transparent. I'm a recovered alcoholic and with 18 years sober. And so, you know, I talk about that and how I had that moment of clarity where I was like, this ain't working anymore.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Since you're transparent and you don't mind bringing it up, that gives me permission to jump in there. Tell me where you were at 25 years ago and what was going on.
Oh, dude. 25 years ago. 25 years ago, there's Robert Brooker.
Yeah, he's a 10X. He's a 10X commenter. He's bought in.
That is funny, man. So 25 years ago, I was I don't know, I was probably living in West Virginia, and I lived down there for about 5 years. And I was DirecTV's largest dealer in the United States. I was a hustler, man. I was, you know, my 20s. I recruited a bunch of salespeople, got them all out working straight commission, knocking on doors every single day, selling home security systems and DirecTV, and we killed it, man. I mean, we absolutely were slaying it. And you know, I drank all that away, man. All of it. $8 million a year company. I drank it into the ground.
Really?
Yeah. So, and ended up taking a job with a company, moving to Seattle, Washington, because I thought, you know, the problem is West Virginia and Ohio. I need to get the heck out of town. Maybe that's the problem. So I go to Seattle, and I found that I followed myself, and ended up telling an incredibly wealthy man that I worked for. He questioned me. He was one of the founders of the McDonnell Douglas Corporation. So he's a billionaire. And I told this man, when he said, why do you come in and I was the VP of sales, why do you come in at 11 o'clock every day and leave at 2 and then don't answer your cell phone? I was like, how dare you question me? And I said, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. And so I walked out before he could say you're fired. So I ended up homeless in Seattle, sleeping in my car. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
How long did you have to sleep in your car?
It was a couple weeks. It was a couple weeks. Yeah. And it was off and on. I would find random places to stay. We won't go into those details, but you know, dude, I look back on the insanity that I created with all that, man. And I just think, good Lord, man, how did I not die?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? It's amazing that you didn't. You know what I mean? It's so when you look at which I don't know all the details, but you know, if it was bad enough that you had to say absolutely no mas, you know, if it was let's talk about what you got right first. Okay. So you were the largest direct TV dealer. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that start? Did they call you? Did you see it as an opportunity? How did you get started with Directv?
I worked with a company here in Columbus. It's a long story. I was watching this farmer that sold satellite systems, the big 10-foot spaceship looking things.
Mm-hmm.
I watched him at my brother-in-law's house install a dish, and I was talking to him, and I had just moved back from Atlanta. I was living in Atlanta and moved back to Ohio, and I'm watching him do all this programming, and because I was staying at my brother-in-law's house because you know I lost everything in Atlanta. That's one of those other stories, but it's a short story. But you know, and so I was watching this guy, and I said, "Dude, what is this thing?" And he's like, "Oh, you pick up 22 satellites and all this." And I'm like, "That's insane, man. How many of these do you install a month?" He goes, "Oh, about one or two." And I said, "Why only one or two?" And he's like, "Well, I just don't get out there and sell it. People just call me." And I said, "I could sell the crap out of this." And he said, well, let's talk. And so I went, literally, I started working for this farmer. He had an old office in his barn, and there were sheep on the backside of the barn was filled with sheep on the backside of my office. And that's where it started, man. I'm banging the phone, calling people, going out, knocking on doors residentially, man, out in the country, and selling these big $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 satellite dishes. And eventually, you know, we got to 50 a month with the big dishes when I was working for him. So I was making crazy money, and I was only 22, I think. And eventually I'm like, I got to do this on my own. And it's a long story, but I ended up in West Virginia and met somebody and ended up down there with her, and it was incredible. What I got right was I learned how to sell.
Mm-hmm. So did you have sales experience? You were 22 years old, probably not much. When you said I can sell this, did you already have some sales training? So
yeah. I worked for the largest collection agency in the country. It was a company called National Revenue Corporation, and I was a contractor. So I you know, they put me, I paid them $500 to buy their kit to be part of the team. And dude, they had the best sales training I'd ever had. When I was 17, I worked for an Amway distributor and sold water purification systems for a minute. That guy tried to give me some sales training, but it wasn't any good. This other company, man, they gave me some great sales training. I started studying Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and all these, and I literally, you know, in 12th grade, they told me, Ken, you didn't get a biology credit in 10th grade. And I said, yeah, that class sucked. I hated it. And they're like, well, you need that to graduate. And I said, come on, man, I'm never going to dissect a frog again. Like what the heck do I need biology for? Who cares how photosynthesis works, right? I don't. And so they were like, well, you have to come back a whole year. And I tried negotiating the whole thing, and they wouldn't do it. So I said, you know what? I'm out of here. And I walked out, man, and never went back, and never got a GED, never got a high school diploma. I had taken all the college prep classes, like, you know, calculus and trigonometry and analytic geometry, and I'd aced all of that. But man, they were hung up on that biology thing, and I was like, "This is crazy." So but you know, here's the thing, man. I've had a lot of college graduates work for me over the years, and you know, when I was doing that thing with National Revenue and another little stint at another sales job, I was like, I realized how much I didn't know, and I always felt like the underdog. I always felt like, I got to, number one, I got to outlearn, and number two, I got to outwork everybody in my that's a competition to me or whatever, And so dude, my office is a big office, and I have shelves and shelves and shelves of books that I've read. I reference them over and over and over. I decided at 21 years old, man, I'm dumber than hell. I need to start reading a lot. And so that's what I did, man.
We're going to talk about his business pretty soon. Okay. About what, about your business and what you're doing now and the phenomenal success that you're having. But let's go back to what you got wrong. I know were you drinking all day, every day, or,
I mean, not always. It was a roller coaster, man. There were sometimes, there were times where I every time I drank until I blacked out.
Really?
And I mean blacked out, where I did not remember what happened the night before. And so it got to a point where I was, drinking within a couple of hours of waking up. I mean, and there were times I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd have the shakes really bad, and I'd have to go get my bottle of Sky vodka out of the freezer and take a couple of big chugs just to calm myself down, man. It was bad. I was physically dependent on alcohol. It was bad. Yeah.
So, addiction is a weird thing, very weird, obviously very powerful. Physical addiction is wow. I mean, alcohol is coming off of that's one of the, from what I'm terrible worst things you can experience.
It was bad. Yeah. It was bad. But I got through it. It's been 18 years now. Now I can be around people. I've been around plenty of people, especially when I lived out in Vegas. I mean, I was around people drinking all the time. It does not bother me. And there's a certain point where people start getting belligerent or whatever, and then I hey, I got to roll. I got to get out of here. But it just doesn't bother me.
What was the breaking point? What made Ken say, okay, this is enough, I'm done?
I had been in a treatment center in the year of 2000. And I got about 6 months under my belt sober, and started another business within a very, very short period of time. I was doing home security systems and Directv, excuse me. And I ended up, I had 2 Mercedes, had the big house, had it all. From the outside, it looked like this dude's got it going on, and I lived in the Muirfield area, which is Dublin, Muirfield, which is where Jack Nicklaus, the golfer, lives, has a house, and his home course is Muirfield Village. And so it's a very uppity area. And I was sitting in this bar, man, and I was, I was on maybe, I think, my 7th beer. I was drinking the big, tall draft beers that night. And this dude sits down next to me. He says, hey, I can start in 2 weeks. And I'm like, start what? He goes, I put in my notice, man. I said, your notice for what? What are you talking about, dude? And I knew him he was a manager at another restaurant bar. And he's like, you said you were going to hire me. I said, for what? And he said, to be your head technician, man. I said, dude, I'm not, what are you talking about, bro? I don't, no, man, we're downsizing right now. I ain't hiring. He says, what are you don't remember talking to me? I said, no, I don't, dude. And he got mad, man.
Yeah.
And he said, I won't even go. He goes, you know what? Everybody around here knows you're nothing but a worthless drunk. Why don't you go get some help? And he got up and walked out. And dude, I don't know if you ever had a moment like this, but there was in that moment, and this is a restaurant / bar. It's a high end place. And I'm sitting there thinking, everybody in this place is looking at me right now. I felt like there was this giant spotlight shining on me, man. And I was like, I'm looking around, kind of trying not to, but doing, and I felt like a couple of people were looking, And I paid my tab, took one sip of that beer. There was still half of it left. Paid my tab, and I walked out. And the next day I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and by the grace of God, I've not had a drink since then, man. But it was a moment of just absolute. It was embarrassing. I think, people talk about the ego as a bad thing. Not for me in that moment, it wasn't, because I think it was my ego that was bruised, man, bad. And that's what made me get up and go, okay, let's go get some help.